Alaska's largest city is Anchorage, population 48,000. A city much like any other city in the United States where people live and work and play. The big difference between Anchorage and any other city of 48,000 is that last Friday, Anchorage experienced the largest earthquake ever recorded. It was late afternoon, and people were glad that another work week was drawing to a close. Men were on their way home from work, and the children were planning the last 2 days of Easter vacation. Suddenly, without any warning, the earth began to tremble and then shake and finally to heave and crack and be torn. The downtown section of the city between 3rd and 5th swayed and sagged and broke apart. Great buildings cracked like Easter eggs. The reinforced concrete Mount McKinley apartments looked like a giant tic-tac-toe game had been played on it. Every window was broken. The people who lived here were allowed to remove their belongings, but only in limited numbers. No more than 10 people in the building at any one time. This building did not fall, but it is one of the casualties, for it will have to be torn down. Every building in the downtown area is damaged, some more than others. The new J.C. Penney's building is 5 stories tall. Sometime during the 7 to 8 minutes that it was being shaken, it lost its entire front wall. That wall fell into the street and took the lives of 2 women in cars parked in front of the store. In those 7 minutes, many people acted in many different ways. An Air Force enlisted man that was in his room when the quake came told me he started to leave and then remembered his new television set. He returned, pulled it out of the building into the snow. A major stationed at Elmendorf Air Base, working late in his office on the 2nd floor when the quake began, elected to drop out the window. Just after he left the room and dropped into the snow below, the walls of his office collapsed. A man I talked to was asleep when it started. He got up, started to dress so he could leave before the house collapsed. He put on his left boot but couldn't find his right. As things were flung about the house, a shoe sailed past. It was the right shoe. He left the house with a right shoe and a left boot, but he left. Some were not as lucky. Sunday morning, as the street in front of Penney's was being cleared, the body of a small boy was found in the debris. There are some small boys and girls that will never be found. The first man I talked to when I arrived in Alaska told me he didn't feel a thing when the quake struck. He was a Navy pilot flying 9,000 feet in the air over Kenai, Alaska at the time. Other people were on a street in Anchorage as it sunk 20 feet below street level. We walked down streets where on one side everything was knocked to the floor of the shops. On the other side of the same street, little more than would be disturbed on a rush day could be seen.
Alaska has been a barren frontier whose growth to modern cities, metropolitan areas, has been possible only because of the pioneer spirit of these tenacious people. They have literally dug with their bare hands to change a wilderness to civilization. As we walked among the rubble, surveying the damage, or talked with the people, we became aware of a pioneer spirit all around us, a pioneering spirit that won't be denied. These people have no time to cry, to feel sorry for themselves, or to mourn. There's too much to be done, to clear, to build, to grow, they told me. One man who worked on 4th Street told me he had been down the street when the quake began. He ran back to the store to help a fellow employee out of the building. As they stepped out onto the sidewalk, the street split in half. The side that they were standing on dropped 20 feet below the other half. Buildings, sidewalks, street, and people all dropped 20 feet. Miraculously, these 2 people stayed on their feet. They ran blindly over splitting, shifting earth to the other side of the street, which was 20 feet above them. They so nearly lost their lives, their place of business is gone. Are they going to leave Alaska? No, sir, say they. They're going to stay to rebuild. 3- and 4-story buildings have been leveled, ground into piles of powder and stone. Who will ever know how many people were lost? It would be impossible to sift tons and tons in search of bodies. One woman said to me, "What good would it do anyway? If it were possible to recover all the bodies, what good would it do? It wouldn't bring them back to life. The best memorial we can give them," she said, "is a living memorial. Rebuild, make our city live again." Now, across town, beyond these warehouses, beyond the freeways, there's a school that, had it been in session, would have been very severely damaged by the quake. For in the middle of the schoolyard, where the children would have been sent in a fire drill formation, a 50-foot fissure arose, splitting the schoolyard in half, one wing of the school sliding into it. Schoolyard equipment tottering and shoved as if by a giant hand. And this is the area that these children would have been in had the school been in session on that Good Friday. The residential area of Turnagain was ripped and torn as if by a huge plow that overturned houses, trees, and great sections of earth. One man, a block away from his home as the earthquake began, started to run home where his wife was alone with 7 children, 2 of his own and 5 who had come over to color Easter eggs. As he tried to go forward, the earth kept opening before him and curling back at him. He was within sight of his home as it was lifted and overturned, but he was unable to reach it. He could hear cries of help all around him, but he was helpless. When the earthquake was over, it took him 45 minutes to reach his home that had only been a block away when the quake began. He crawled and he climbed and he ran, and he eventually got there to discover his wife and all 7 children quite safe. However, an eyewitness told us of 2 children who ran in terror from an area they had been safely playing as the quake began. And as they ran, the earth below them opened and closed above them and smothered their cries. Smothered the cries that were heard around the world on this Good Friday.